The Thanksgiving dinner table went silent the moment Rachel made her announcement. It was November 23, 2012, 6:47 p.m. She slowly set down her fork, her hands slightly trembling. "I'm dropping out of college," she said quietly. Her mother, Mary, froze with her spoon halfway to her mouth. Her father, Henry, lowered his wine glass with a sharp clink. Her older sister, Jenny, stared at her like she had just revealed she was joining a secret cult. "You're what?" Henry demanded, leaning forward. "Dropping out," Rachel repeated. "I'm leaving at the end of the semester." Mary blinked hard, her voice trembling. "Sweetheart, is this a joke?" "No joke," Rachel answered softly. "I already submitted the paperwork." Jenny scoffed loudly. "You're a sophomore, Rachel. You're halfway through. Why would you do something so stupid?" Rachel felt her chest tighten. "Because I hate it," she snapped before she could stop herself. "I hate my major. I hate the classes. I hate everything about it. I'm miserable and I'm wasting your money." Henry's voice rose instantly. "What you're wasting is your future. Do you know how hard it is to get into Northwestern?" Jenny leaned back, arms crossed. "Let me guess," she said with a smirk. "You're dropping out to do what? Work at a cafe? Live in our basement?" Rachel shook her head. "I'm moving to New York. I got a job offer as an editorial assistant." Henry laughed, but nothing about it was funny. "That's a secretary job, Rachel. You're throwing away a Northwestern degree for something that pays peanuts." Rachel felt her stomach twist but forced herself to breathe. "It's a start," she said quietly. "It's a disaster," Jenny shot back. "You always quit when life gets hard." Rachel stood up, her voice shaking. "I finished community college with a 3.2 GPA, she reminded Jenny. But Jenny waved a dismissive hand. "Barely. And you only got into Northwestern because you wrote some sad story in your essay." The words hit harder than Rachel expected. Henry pointed a finger at her. "This is a huge mistake. And hear me clearly, we will not support you financially. No rent. No food. Nothing." Mary gasped. "Henry, that's harsh." "She wants to be an adult," he snapped. "Fine. Let her face adult consequences." Rachel swallowed. "I'm not asking for anything." The tension in the room became unbearable. Jenny's voice cut through the silence. "You're 20 years old with no degree, no real skills, and you want to move to one of the most expensive cities in the world? That's not bravery. That's failure." Rachel felt her eyes sting. "I should go," she whispered. "Rachel, wait." Mary reached out. But Rachel grabbed her coat and walked out into the freezing Chicago night. 3 weeks later, she left for New York with $1,800 in savings, a suitcase of clothes, and a stubborn belief that she could build a life on her own terms. New York hit Rachel like a storm. Her job at Hartley & Sons Publishing was exactly as tough as her father had predicted. She earned $28,000 a year, worked 60-hour weeks, and spent most of her time fetching coffee, filing papers, and reading piles of manuscripts that never saw daylight. Her tiny 280-square-foot apartment in Brooklyn had a shower in the kitchen and walls so thin she heard every argument next door. 4 nights a week she ate ramen. Her family barely called. When her mother did, it was always updates she didn't ask for, mostly about Jenny's achievements. Jenny called only once in those first 6 months. The moment Rachel answered, her sister's voice carried judgment. "I heard you're living in some shoebox in Brooklyn," Jenny said. "Mom's worried sick." Rachel kept her voice steady. "I'm fine." "Are you?" Jenny pressed. "Because it looks like you made a huge mistake and you're too proud to admit it." Rachel swallowed hard. "I'm happy, Jenny." Jenny scoffed. "You're 20 working endless hours for pennies. That's not happiness, that's delusion. You should re-enroll. Go back to school. Stop embarrassing the family." Then Jenny hung up before Rachel could speak. That was the last real conversation they had for 12 long years. But Rachel wasn't failing, not in the way her family imagined. The publishing job was brutal, yes, but she was learning fast. She learned how books were acquired, shaped, and sold. She studied every manuscript until her eyes hurt, learning what made writing powerful. After 2 years, she became assistant editor. After 4 years, associate editor. After 6 years, senior editor. 3 authors she discovered won major awards. 2 hit the bestseller list. Rachel had finally found her passion, guiding new writers and helping them grow. She began teaching a small writing workshop at NYU to earn extra money. One evening after class, a professor approached her. "You're a natural teacher," the woman said. "Have you thought about teaching full-time?" Rachel sighed. "I don't have a degree." The professor smiled. "Then get one. Not for status, your talent already speaks for itself, but for opportunity." That conversation planted a seed. At 26, Rachel made another difficult choice. She applied for and entered the Columbia University MFA program. She worked full-time, attended classes at night, and wrote her thesis on the subway. Those 2 years were the hardest of her life. She slept little, studied constantly, and squeezed writing into every spare moment she could find. But she finished. At 28, she graduated with her MFA in creative writing and received an offer to teach undergraduate writing courses at Columbia. By 30, she was promoted to assistant professor. At 31, she published her first book, a behind-the-scenes look at the publishing world that gained strong attention in academic circles. At 32, she became associate professor and joined the undergraduate admissions committee, where everything in her story would soon change. Serving on the admissions committee opened Rachel's eyes to something she didn't expect. As she read hundreds of applications, she realized she had a gift for spotting potential hidden beneath imperfect grades or unusual life paths. She could read an essay and see the heart behind it, the courage, the struggle, the resilience. "You understand students differently," one colleague told her. "You see what the rest of us overlook." Her work didn't go unnoticed. And when Yale University reached out about an opening for Dean of Undergraduate Admissions, Rachel almost didn't apply. But she did. 6 interviews later, Yale offered her the position. At 32 years old, Rachel became one of the youngest admissions deans in the Ivy League. The irony wasn't lost on her. The college dropout was now deciding who got admitted into one of the most prestigious universities in the world. She moved to New Haven in August 2024. Days later, her mother called for the first time in years. "Dean at Yale," Mary said softly. "Your father will be so proud." Rachel paused. "Will he?" He's trying," Mary murmured. "He asks about you." "Does Jenny?" Rachel asked. Silence answered her. Application season began in November. Yale received 52,000 applications for just 1,550 spots. Every file was read by at least 2 officers, and Rachel personally handled borderline cases and special circumstances. Late one Friday night, with her 4th coffee beside her, she opened a file from Illinois. The last name made her freeze: Chin. Jenny's married name. Her husband was David Chin. Rachel's hands trembled as she opened the application. Amanda Chin, age 17. 4.0 GPA. 1570 essay valedictorian. Debate captain. Volunteer. He was strong, very strong. Then Rachel clicked on the personal essay. The essay began simply, "My family doesn't talk about my Aunt Rachel." Rachel stopped breathing. She read on. Amanda wrote about the whispers she grew up hearing, how her aunt dropped out of college, how she threw away her future, how she became the family embarrassment. Jenny had used Rachel as a warning. "Do you want to end up like Rachel?" she'd ask Amanda. Reading those words felt like reopening a wound Rachel thought had healed. She closed her eyes, fighting emotion. She should hand the file to another officer. She should walk away. But she couldn't. Amanda wrote that at 16, curiosity made her search for her aunt online. She expected failure. Instead, she found Dr. Rachel Brown, MFA graduate, published author, professor, and now dean at Yale. Amanda wrote, "Everything my family told me was wrong." Rachel didn't fail. She succeeded in a way none of us understood. She wrote how the discovery changed her worldview, how she'd spent her life following the perfect path, out of fear of becoming like Rachel. But now she realized the aunt she was taught to pity was actually someone she admired. Someone she wanted to become. Rachel set the file down and covered her face. Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. For 12 years she had built a life without her family, convinced she didn't need their approval. Yet here was her niece writing about her like she was a hero. When she could finally breathe again, she made the hardest professional decision she had faced since joining Yale. She picked up her phone and called her assistant, Dean Marcus Green. "Marcus," she whispered, "I need you to read an application." Family conflict. Give me your honest assessment. Marcus arrived within minutes. Rachel handed him the file but told him not to look at her notes. He read everything quietly, the transcript, recommendations, resume, and then the essay. When he finished, he said, "She's exceptional. Strong on paper, but the essay, that's special." He looked up at Rachel. "Is this about you?" She nodded. Marcus exhaled slowly. "What would you decide if you weren't connected?" "I'd admit her," Rachel said softly. "Easily." Marcus nodded. "Then I'll take it to committee. No mention of the family link. Let her stand on her own merit." 2 weeks later, the admissions committee met to review borderline cases. Rachel stepped out when Amanda's name came up, pacing the hallway with her heart pounding. When Marcus returned to her office an hour later, he smiled. "She's in," he said. "Unanimous." Rachel sank into her chair, releasing a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me," Marcus replied. "She earned it." Now came the part she'd been dreading. Should she tell Jenny? Should she reach out to Amanda? Should she stay silent? That night she made her choice. At 9:47 p.m., Rachel dialed her sister's number for the first time in 12 years. Jenny answered on the fourth ring. "Hello. Jenny, it's Rachel." Silence, then a cautious, "Is something wrong?" "No," Rachel said. "I need to talk to you about Amanda." Jenny's voice sharpened. "What happened? Is she okay?" "She applied to Yale." "She did," Jenny breathed. "She applied to 9 schools. We're very proud." She hesitated. "Wait, you're at Yale. Did you see it?" Rachel sighed. "I'm the dean of admissions, Jenny. Of course I saw it." Jenny's voice dropped to a whisper. "Rachel, I swear we didn't apply because of you." "I know," Rachel replied. "Did you read her essay?" "No," Jenny said. "She wouldn't let anyone see it." Rachel paused. "She wrote about me. About how you used me as a warning. About what she discovered when she finally looked me up." There was a long, painful silence. Then Jenny whispered, "Rachel, I was wrong. About everything." Her voice cracked. "I was jealous." Rachel frowned. "Jealous?" Jenny sobbed softly. "You had the courage to choose your life. I just followed mine." Jenny's voice trembled as the truth spilled out. "I did everything right, Rachel. I got the grades, the law degree, the marriage, the house. And I'm miserable. I work 80 hours a week on cases I don't care about. My marriage is falling apart and Amanda barely knows me. You were the brave one. You walked away from something that wasn't working. I was too scared." Rachel felt her chest tighten. She had imagined many reasons for Jenny's cruelty over the years. Anger, pride, misunderstanding. But jealousy? That she hadn't expected. They stayed quiet for a long moment, breathing together. Finally, Jenny whispered, "I'm sorry. For everything I said about you. For turning Amanda against you. For calling you a failure. You were never the embarrassment. I was just too blind to see your strength." Rachel felt tears rise again. "Jenny, it'll take time," she said gently. "I know," Jenny replied. "But Rachel, I'm proud of you. I should have said that 12 years ago." They talked for another hour. Jenny spoke about her failing marriage, her exhaustion, her fear of disappointing Amanda. Rachel spoke about her years in publishing, her MFA, her work at Yale. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. 3 weeks later, Amanda visited Yale for Admitted Students' Day. Rachel arranged to meet her at a small cafe near campus. She arrived early, hands shaking slightly. At exactly 2 p.m., Amanda walked in, tall, sharp features like her mother's but softer eyes. She froze when she saw Rachel. "Aunt Rachel." "Amanda," Rachel said, standing. They sat, the silence thick at first. Finally, Amanda spoke. "So, you read my essay?" "I did," Rachel said with a small smile. "I'm sorry if that was awkward," Amanda whispered. "I just needed to write about something real." Rachel leaned forward. "Don't apologize. It was brave and honest. And it helped the committee see who you truly are." Amanda sighed, staring into her coffee. "Mom told me what she used to say about you. About you being a failure. She cried when she told me." Rachel softened. "Is it true you dropped out of Northwestern?" Amanda asked. "True," Rachel answered. "And you lived in a tiny apartment while working almost for free?" Also true. And now you're a dean at Yale. Rachel laughed. Unfortunately, also true. Amanda smiled. That's the coolest story I've ever heard. They talked for 2 hours. Amanda confessed she wanted to major in English and creative writing but felt pressured to choose economics. Everyone says writing isn't practical, she murmured. Rachel smiled gently. Do you know why I became dean? Amanda shook her head. Because my whole life people told me I was doing everything wrong. Dropping out was wrong. Publishing was wrong. Getting an MFA was wrong. But every time someone said that, I proved them wrong. Amanda stared at her wide-eyed. That's inspiring. Rachel nodded. Success isn't one path, Amanda. It's the path you're willing to walk. Amanda enrolled at Yale as an English major with a creative writing concentration. Rachel arranged monthly mentorship sessions. Officially for academic guidance, but really to build a relationship that had been lost for years. Meanwhile, Jenny began changing her life. She reduced her workload, started attending Amanda's events, and filed for divorce. I'd rather be a single mom than stay in a loveless marriage, she told Rachel. Slowly their relationship mended, awkward at first, then cautiously warm. Her parents reached out too. The first call was stiff. We were wrong, Henry said quietly. We should have supported you. Months later her parents visited Yale. Rachel walked them through campus. The old stone buildings, the classrooms, her office. Henry stood silently in front of her framed diplomas, her published book, her photos from conferences. I'm sorry, he said at last. I called you a failure. I said you'd never succeed. Rachel swallowed gently. You were scared, she replied. You wanted me to have stability. I understand that now. Her mother wiped a tear. They all went to dinner, Rachel, her parents, Jenny, and Amanda. It was the first full family dinner in 12 years. There were silences, but also laughter. As they ate, Amanda leaned close and whispered, "Thank you." Rachel frowned. For what? For being you, Amanda said softly. For showing me it's okay to be different. Rachel squeezed her hand. Later that night, walking back to her apartment, Rachel's phone rang from an unknown number. Dr. Brown, a nervous voice asked. This is Sarah Martinez. I'm a high school senior in Arizona. My counselor gave me your email, but I wanted to call. Rachel smiled softly. How can I help you, Sarah? Her voice shook. I read your book. I think I want to drop out of my program. Rachel sat down on a bench. Tell me what's going on, she said gently. Sarah explained her fears. Everyone calling her decision reckless, her parents saying she was ruining her future, her teachers warning she'd regret it. What do I do? Sarah whispered. Rachel thought of the ramen dinners, the arguments, the tiny apartment, the loneliness, and the victories that came later. I can't tell you what choice to make, Rachel said softly. But I can tell you this. The traditional path works for many people but not for everyone. If you have a clear vision and work hard, there are other ways. Did you regret it? Sarah asked. Rachel closed her eyes. She remembered freezing nights in Brooklyn, her father's angry words, Jenny's insults, the silence from home. Then she remembered the students she'd helped, the authors she'd discovered, her MFA, her book, her office with her name on the door, her niece calling her an inspiration. Not for a single second, Rachel said. After the call ended, she sat quietly thinking about that Thanksgiving night 12 years ago, how she'd walked into the cold alone, believing she might be making the biggest mistake of her life. But it wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning. The next morning, Rachel returned to her office, the campus still quiet under the early sun. A fresh batch of applications waited on her desk. Another year, another wave of hopeful students. She took a deep breath and picked up the first file. She read slowly, carefully, the way she always did. She looked not only for perfect grades, but for grit, courage, and the stories hidden between lines. She had learned long ago that the brightest students were not always the ones with flawless transcripts, but the ones who had fought their way through storms and were still standing. She opened an application from a student who had started at community college, transferred twice, and held a 3.4 GPA. Not impressive at first glance. But the letters of recommendation were powerful, and the essay described nights spent studying in a homeless shelter. Many committees would reject such an applicant within minutes. Rachel didn't. She saw what others might miss: determination, resilience, strength. She picked up her red pen and wrote at the top, Strong admit. Committee review recommended. She smiled softly. She understood students like this. She had once been one of them herself, fighting for a chance. While reading through the next file, Rachel's phone buzzed. A message from Amanda appeared on her screen. Thanks for last night. Love you, Aunt Rachel. She stared at the text, warmth rising in her chest. For years she'd convinced herself that she didn't need her family's love or approval. But maybe what she truly needed was connection. Honest, imperfect, rebuilding itself one step at a time. She typed back, "Love you too, Amanda." He paused before sending it, then hit send. A small message but powerful. For the first time in years she felt the word family return meaning. Later that afternoon, Rachel walked across Yale's campus. Students hurried by with backpacks, books, and dreams bigger than the buildings around them. She watched them and wondered how many of them had been told they were making a mistake. How many had been discouraged by the people meant to support them? How many were walking paths that others didn't understand? She smiled gently. Those were the students she fought for, the ones she believed in before anyone else did. She had lived that struggle. She had survived it. And now she was in a position to give others the chance she once fought for alone. In the evening, she met with a small group of first-year students for a discussion about personal journeys. One shy boy raised his hand. "Dean Brown," he asked softly, "did you always know you'd end up here?" Rachel laughed gently. "Absolutely not. I made choices most people thought were wrong. I dropped out, started over, chose paths others didn't approve of." Another girl leaned forward. "Then how did you know you were doing the right thing?" Rachel thought for a moment. "Because it felt like my path," she answered. "Not the safest, not the easiest, but mine." As the students left the room, one girl lingered. "My parents don't want me studying art," she whispered. "They say it's a waste." Rachel looked into her anxious eyes and saw her younger self reflected back. "What do you want?" Rachel asked gently. The girl hesitated. "I want to create things." Rachel smiled. "Then start there. Keep your grades strong, keep working hard, but don't let fear decide your life." The girl nodded slowly, relief washing over her face. Moments like this reminded Rachel why she loved her work. Not the title, not the respect, but the chance to guide someone's future. Walking back to her office, Rachel passed a group of professors chatting about research projects. She overheard bits of conversation: stress, deadlines, pressure. Academia had challenges, but it also held something Rachel cherished: the power to change lives quietly, one student at a time. As she entered her office, she noticed the framed photo on her wall. Her at 20 years old, standing in her tiny Brooklyn apartment holding a single suitcase. She remembered the fear in her eyes. The uncertainty. The loneliness. She touched the frame gently. That girl had no idea she would someday help shape futures at Yale University. Her phone rang again, this time from her mother. "Hi, sweetheart," Mary said warmly. Rachel leaned back in her chair. "Hi, Mom." There was no tension now, only a quiet understanding. "Your father is cooking tonight," Mary chuckled. "He wants you to know he's practicing for the next family dinner." Rachel smiled. "Tell him I'm ready for the challenge." "We're proud of you, Rachel," Mary said softly. "Not because of Yale, but because you didn't give up on yourself." Rachel felt her throat tighten. "Thanks, Mom," she whispered. "It means more than you know." After hanging up, Rachel stood by her window, looking out at the campus glowing under the evening lights. Students crossed courtyards with laughter, ambition, and hope. She remembered Amanda's words, "I want to be like you." It still felt strange to think of herself as someone's role model. She had spent years believing she was the disappointment, the mistake, the black sheep. Now she understood something deeper. Her journey, messy and imperfect, had meaning. Every struggle, every lonely night, every moment of doubt had shaped her into someone strong enough to guide others. Rachel returned to her desk and picked up the next application. She read the first line of the essay and smiled. Another student with an unconventional story. Another life asking for a chance. She reached for her red pen, the same way she had countless times before, and wrote her notes with care. The world loved to celebrate perfect paths, but Rachel knew the truth. Some of the brightest futures belonged to those who started imperfectly, stumbled, got back up, and walked forward anyway. She closed the file gently. The college dropout who became a dean was ready to change another life.